Good morning. It's Monday morning this morning. Unfortunately, I never managed to get those rock sliders done over the weekend. Screwed my leg up and I had to rest it up with anti-inflammatories. I have no idea what I did. I have absolutely no idea what I did, but unfortunately nothing got done. So this week's work is the rock sliders. You can see the steel is still there. So we've got quite literally, we've got a sandblast, well not sandblast, but I would like to. We've got to wire brush that all back as best as possible. Then we'll cut the ends, we'll put a sloping on the back, and we're going to do a ski type front, because these not just only going to be rock sliders, but they're going to look like floorboards as well. Then we've got to cut in a hole, and we've got to French in an aluminium step on both sides. And what I also want to do, just to give it a little bit more of a manufactured look, and I don't know if I can pull it off yet, I want to get a thin piece of tin, and I want to cut a hole in the side, and I want to bead roll the Union Jack flag in the tin, and then attempt to weld it in behind, and then I want to put a thicker piece of steel behind that, just so as the strength is back in to where it's supposed to be. That's what we're doing this week. But before we do that, we need to do something about this. I don't actually know what's been going on. Literally, we both sat in the car and the suspension just snapped. It was like a tyre exploding. There was so much pressure released at the time of that happening. So I've got to get the wheel off, I've got to get the bonnet up, I've got to get the plastic trim out of the way, and I've got to see what's going on. And that's really annoyed me, because this is going to take me a while. Oh, we did do a good job of that. And it's always at the rust points. You can always tell when the spring, see, look at the rust. That has been cracked for a while. Well, that spring snapping last week definitely has put my rhythm off this week. Anyway, the spring is now fixed. I've now topped it up, the gearbox up with oil as well, because I lost a bit of oil. I'm probably about 100 mil, a little bit more than I should be, and I'm hoping it won't cause any problems, but I don't really know at the moment. Getting to the drain plug's a little bit more trickier than I planned, so I went through the breather instead, which meant shifting all of the battery tray. We suffered or sustained some damage as well. God, I hate modern cars, I really do. So we've had to tape up all of that area. I don't know if that's going to hold. That one's flipped up, look. Tomorrow morning, regardless of weather, we're going to grab a length of this very large steel, and we're going to create two rock sliders out of this. But it is now time to do the rock sliders. I've got two pieces of these to go on, plus one for the rear bumper. They're nice and heavy. I actually look forward to doing the bumper one, because I'm going to French in those lights if they'll fit. They're in a tub down there, but I don't know, I'm looking at that, it's going to be close. So I really do need to de-rust these, and the one thing I hate about rust and de-rusting with a wire wheel is it tends to fill a room up with loads of thick smoggy rust. You breathe that in, it's not healthy. So I'm going to try and experiment. I'm going to wet these down, and then I'm going to hit them with the wire wheel and see what happens. Well, I have to confess, the water on the rust idea wasn't 100% perfect. It did help, but it really didn't stop dust from getting in the air where you breathe it in. So, yeah, bit of a bust, but I'll do it again anyway. I was going to French that step in, but I've since changed my mind. The reason I changed my mind is because crap behind it, or under it, sorry, I need to be able to get that out, and if I French it in, mud will get inside there. It'd be an absolute nightmare getting rid of it. It'd be power washer, probably tear all the paint off trying to do it. So what I've decided to do instead is to mount that on the outside as you see it now. Bearing in mind this is going to sit underneath the Land Rover a little bit, or the Range Rover chassis. It's going to be underneath, so half of this is going to be hidden. So with that in mind, I'm going to work out first where it's going to sit. Obviously I think what we'll end up doing is we'll do a bolt-on tube that will go from here across and down with 2 points near the step to try and protect it from impact, and so I don't get snagged up. I could cut that along there and go with that, but there'll be so much of the step hidden underneath it there's no point to it. So that's kind of where my mind's going with it, but the bit I'm putting on is going to have to be a bolt-on. I can't weld it because not while it's in the garden. I'll never get it out of the alleyway, it'll be too wide. Right, holes for cap heads. Basically 8 holes, perfectly aligned, and 8 cap heads will go through there. Boom, 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 boom. What I did is I drilled out, I laid that on, and with a 12mm drill bit went straight through those holes and into that, and got it very accurately that way. Then I drilled a further 14mm hole, and then I put a 10mm bolt into the nuts, turned the nuts upside down, that's what these are, nuts. And I'll show you the nuts. They were given to me a little while back by a subscriber, which I'm extremely grateful for, because they've turned out to be rather good, and I've now found out where they come from. So I will get my hands on some more of them at a later date. You can buy those in Screwfix. They sell them there. So I've turned them upside down, put a bolt on the end and hammered them buggers in, and they are now locked in place. And when you've done that, then you put a little tack weld around each side and then rethread them because they stretch and shrink. Rethread them just to get them tidy, and now the step can now be mounted on there. I've now also marked up here, so I've left, oh, the stand, I've marked up here, so I'm going to cut that out there, and I'm going to cut along there, but I'm going to leave that where it is, fold that around to that angle there. This side I've put a slope that way. Instead of coming in at that angle, I've just literally gone straight 90 degree and then down at 45 degree. Pretty much the same there, 45 degree. The front mudguard's not going to join onto that. Originally I was going to ski it up, but I've since changed my mind on that. I don't think we need to. I've got some alterations I want to make to the front mudguards anyway, and I'll talk about that another day. So plasma cut in a minute, that all out, fold that round, but I'm not sure at this point if I'm going to need access to the inside. The reason why I'm saying this is there's an awful overhang on that. For a rock slider, that's not going to work. This is going to be tucked underneath, as we spoke about, so I really could do with an extension along here. So what I'm going to do next, I'm not sure what steel I'm going to do it with. I've got a couple of pieces of steel down there, as you can see. I might take those and just build a piece of tubular steel to go around and down. But what I will do is cut out a steel plate. I've got a lovely thick bit there, but that's going to be a nightmare to cut. I do have my angle that we spoke about down there. I do have this, but I have a job for that and it ain't thick enough anyway. But we'll make up some plates to be bolted in, either 2 bolts or 4 bolts, I don't know yet. And then we'll bend a piece of metal to go around and then back down again. And what I might also do, more of an afterthought than anything, I might put a piece of angle iron along there as well, and then put a piece of tin over the top with holes drilled in it. I don't know about that at the moment. I haven't made my mind up yet. I have been debating about drilling random holes in the side of this, just for tidiness, but I'm a little concerned it might put a bit of a weak point in there. Okay, 1 rock slider. Problem is, can't really give you, there you go, oh these bloody legs. There you go. There you go. Right, one rock slider. That is what I'm putting on the car. I do feel that I am going to have to put a couple more braces in there, but other than that, I think that's good to go. We've got some bolts to pick up tomorrow because Tool Station don't do them no more. I don't know what's going on with that stupid shop. Anyway, that can be removed, and that's going to be removed so I can get it out of the garden, and that is coming off so I can remove the vehicle, because obviously it's all going to be in the way, isn't it? But for now it will all go on as you see it. I think that's pretty substantial. I just got to do some grinding here. I just got to curb these areas here over, take away some of the edging there. There's not much more I can do with it really. Again, take that curve away, the one underneath. Maybe clean that edge up there. It's not great, is it? But it is what it is. It is a rock slider. I think that'd be okay, to be honest with you. Okay, take two. Now the fabrication is finished. I even put in the Union Jack as we spoke about before. I was going to French that in, but the problem with Frenching it in is if I get it wrong, water build up on it and it will rot out like you wouldn't believe. So I've done that instead. I put it on top so it looks like a pressing. Well, that was the idea anyway. I mean, it's not great, it's not perfect, but I'm happy enough with it. So yeah, step is now ready to be bolted down, and I put a reinforcement in that needs a bit of tidying up, but side impact that won't stop it from bowing up, but to be honest I don't think you'll stop that anyway. But that locks in there, so if I hit something it should protect the slider. Could really do with another one here, to be honest, but we'll see where my mood takes me later on. I've now got to build the other one. I haven't even started it yet. So there is the first rocky slide. Right, I've now got to skedoodle off. I've got to go to the doctor's, get this leg looked at. I'm now on the bar, as you can see there, and all I've done is slitted and then trimmed. I've got to make two brackets up each side, bolts and a piece of 6mm rod going down. And the reason the rod's there is to stop when I weld it, to stop everything from pulling, basically. So I weld them first, grind them flat, grind round there, and then I bolt the panels on, put the wire in, and then I weld them to each side. After I've done that, we've just got the Union Jack to do, and we've got to make another 3 more of those because I want 2 on each now. I've decided that that needs 1 more. Once I got that out of the way, I found that the sander gets rid of the rust quicker than the wire brush does. So then we'll sand this all back, get all the rust off, put some rust eater on it. I bought some of that, paint that all over, and then we'll rub that down, and then we'll put some hammerite over all of it except for the back panel, because that's got to be welded on. And that's pretty much it. That'll be the 2 sliders. So the video will get uploaded when these are finished and welded on the car, which is going to be late tomorrow, which is Friday, today's Thursday. And then I will do the wheel arches as the next video, because there's been so much stuff going on behind to what I normally would do. I haven't had a chance to do the things I wanted to do. Now if the weather stays good over the weekend, because it's a no noise situation, then I'm going to come in here, cut all my tin sheets, grind them flat, and then I shall go out and start welding all of the steel in place. I don't think that will disturb anybody, and if it do, it's tough because I need to get on. I've had enough now. Now I wasn't gonna... Good morning, Friday morning. I'm going to upload video later on, but before I do that I want to fit the rock slider that I built. I've disconnected the bar. I don't actually know what that is. The deflector, we'll call it for a better word, the deflector bar. I did re-weld up the flag, but yeah, it didn't go so well. So plasma cut the old bar off. I took the checker plate off, which is there, and I'm going to cut all that metal out, see what can be salvaged on the body props that I put in. Haven't got any on the other side at all, but we'll see what we can salvage, and then we're going to recut the checker plate and lay that in place, and we will cut a notch out as well for the step, so when we lay that in and put the step in, we can cut a little area over, slice it, push it, and then make something up at a later date. The plan today really is well, it's to get it welded on really, and then over the weekend we'll start the wheel arch on this side. We're not going to do the other rock slider because there's a lot of aggravation involved in it, to be honest, on this side, because we've got to get rid of that. We've got to trim up, we ain't done anything this side, we've just literally put the angle iron in and left it, so I'm going to concentrate on that side next week. But for now it's this side. I've put rust inhibitor over the metal, but that hasn't really worked out very well, so we'll see where we go. We'll weld it on anyway, and then we'll hammerite it all up. That is eventually getting bed lined, but for now, just to keep it protected, because you can see what's happening to all the metal. It's just deteriorating pretty quick, and the roof ain't no better example. I've oiled all the rough metal to try and protect it, but you can only do so much. I mean, we are at the point now where we could really do with getting some paint in this, but I can't paint the interior up until these exterior arches are done. So that's for today. Moving on. Well, something like that. Only problem is I'm now being plagued with rain. I reckon we'll have to bend that across, weld that further down, so it's going to go like that really. The checker plate sits in there nicely, I haven't got to make any cuts. If I was to put a piece of flat steel along, I could actually bolt the checker plate to the bottom of that as well, which would give me more strength. But my biggest issue is how in hell's name am I going to put this on? Because I don't actually have any idea at this point. Okay, so what I've done instead, completely the opposite of what I spoke about, is I've bolted two pieces of really thick heavy tube in the actual cross members themselves. That way I've managed to keep the original bolt holes and the little props. I've got to make the same props on the other side as well. What I've got to do now is trim up. So I've got to cut along that line, and then drop the piece of metal in and under, and then I can weld up behind each side. I can add more support if needed to where those old gas tank straps are that are welded on. We can come off of that and go straight across if we really do feel the need. But what you've got to remember is one, I am putting extra strength up here, and we will be running some kind of roll cage, which I'm not quite sure how that's going to work now, because that side isn't quite long enough. I've possibly ballsed myself up here a little bit. I may have to come down with a tube and then bend the tube in, or bend it at an angle to be able to get what I want, which isn't a bad thing really. It is what it is, there's nothing I can do about it. So I just, where the door hinges are, if I run a tube from there all the way up, it's just going to hinder the door hinges. I might be lucky enough to get away with maybe drilling a hole here and slotting a piece of steel down inside and then going up and then up and so forth. We'll see where we go. So now I've got to mark, plasma cut the metal, then with a flatbed disc on my grinder just trim it up, and then the welder can come out. We'll weld it. Once we've welded it, we will paint it all up, put the pieces on that need to go on, put the checker plate back on, and then we'll call this video. First I wasn't sure if this was going to look better than what was already there, but I actually do like that a lot more. That looks stronger, but I've had one hindrance today. That's the wind. Wind and welding gas does not mix, and that has been a struggle. So I do not know at this point in time how strong that actually is. In fact, I'm so annoyed with it that I'm thinking about pulling the arc welder out and try and get in there along the top at least with the arc welder, and maybe when I do my engineer's report with the company I'm going to, get them to weld it up properly after, and then that way they're convinced it's strong, I haven't got to worry about anything. Everyone's happy, in my way of thinking. So right, so next to do, I've got to get some paint on it. At some point I need to get some angle iron welded in along the bottom. I'd like to put that checker plate in as well, so that'll add to its strength. Also help with the body being fixed. I've got to trim off that bit of metal there underneath that piece, because that's no longer connected to the chassis. And then we've got to do the whole blooming thing all over again. Although on this side, I'm gonna, before I get anywhere into this, I'm going to tomorrow, if it's not raining, we're going to start doing all of that lot. We'll get the piece of stainless cut and welded in down there. It'll work. Piece of steel, plasma cut across, put a new piece of steel in there, cut out that box steel all together, and then we'll try and cut a piece to go along the bottom of that door to seal that all up. Weld that piece of box steel down there that isn't connected yet. Oh, and there's another piece to be welded up in here as well. Stop all the muck from getting in. Now we've got to spray foam, fill everything, because I don't want moisture in there. I want this truck to last as long as it can. So there you go. The welds didn't work out on the flag, so I've now got rid of those. So we just got to get some paint on it now, but as you can see, it's raining again. I am so pleased with that rock slider. That has come out, I personally think, brilliant, and I'm glad I bolted that kick plate bar, whatever you call it, on there, because there's no way that'll fit through the alleyway with that on. So when I do move this, the step is going to have to come off and the bar at the front is going to have to come off. I have got the other side to do. You can see how I've entangled the wheel arch into the rock slider itself. So next week's video, I'm going to show you this image, and then it will be completed, so there'll be no breaks in between. It will be start, finish. But the other side, I'll do my best to film as I go along, bearing in mind, look, you've got a bit to bear in mind, there is not a lot of room here, so setting the camera up is a bit tricky. Not a lot of room at all, so we've got to do this all over again. That was a day to get that on. So we've got steel tubes bolted to the chassis, not welded. There is not one single weld in there. I want to run another bolt through the center at some point. Not necessary though, because I haven't painted the back part of the rock slider yet, because I still feel there is room for some improvement. Now I've painted it up just to protect it from the rust, because I spent a lot of time and effort trying to get that cleaned up. Now it's de-rusted and treated. I just didn't want it going rusty again. But eventually that's going to be bed lined all the way along there in black, along with that wheel arch in black possibly. So we'll mask off and bed line that all up. That's the plan. I don't know how well that plan will go, but that is the plan. We've got to highlight the Union Jack flag with some red, a little bit of blue, maybe a bit of white. But other than that, yeah, we are good to go. I'm pleased with that. I really am. Well, smart. So it's evolving now. Starting to see something. It is now starting to man up a bit. I'm pleased with that. Sorry, get the camera right. It is starting to it is starting to man up. You know, it's starting to look a little sinister, a little bit more rugged. I'd say that's about the height of a regular Land Rover is. I wouldn't say that was any higher. But the wheel arches, I mean, you don't need a lift kit for this because wheel arches have got the space. Pleased, over the moon, dead satisfied. Let's get the other one done. So that's for next week. With that in mind, I need a haircut at some point, and we will pick up the next rock slider on the next episode. So again, thank you for your views, your likes, your comments, and we'll see you very soon in the foreseeable future. Laters. Take care. Have a good weekend.